Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott. On this show, I talk about life, love, healing, spirituality, witchcraft, magic, trauma, tarot, divination, feminine energy, and everything in between. I think I have my voice back for the most part. Over the last few weeks, my voice has been in need of a lot of rest. So I appreciate the patience of y'all because I have been just a little bit away from the podcast and a little bit away from YouTube, and I've needed to save what bits of my voice were left for my clients and the markets that I was doing over the last few weekends, as it is market season as it gets a little bit colder up in here. So hello and happy Halloween, happy Samhain. It feels really good to be releasing this latest episode on one of the most sacred days of the year for many witches who are in some way influenced by European magical things. Everyone loves Samhain, everyone loves Halloween, even sometimes the non-witchy folks love Halloween, and October really is Halloween month. So for those of y'all who don't know, I'm sure there might be one or two of y'all listening who are not aware, Samhain historically has been a festival that is around light and fire and working with these things to protect ourselves and cast out the darkness and cast away illness and evil vibes and things of that nature. So it's a really, really good time of the year to ask your spirits, your ancestors, your spirit team, any divinities or saints that you work with to help you cast out those dark shadows within yourself, whatever illnesses, whether literal or symbolic, exist still within you. We all are going to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some of these things that can still cause us to slip up or just, have negative thoughts or pessimism or whatever happens to be. So whatever it is that you need to do this Samhain to do a little bit of protection magic on your home, on yourself, on your pets, on your loved ones, it's definitely a great way to work with this time of year. And of course, one of my typical traditions is to do a dumb supper, or basically cook something and leave out food for the ancestors and the saints and the spirits. I'm actually not going to be doing that on Halloween this year. I'll probably do that this coming Sunday on November 2nd, as I've got a really busy few days. And for all my baseball, sports ball people, you will know that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to kick the ass of the LA Dodgers tonight, and we are going to win the World Series. This is my desire. It's not a prediction, it's a desire. Have I tapped into the energies of the universe? No, but if I did, I think they would tell me that the Jays are going to win because it's a fucking vibe. And so today is Blue Jays ween, baseball ween. I don't know what to call it. It is basically baseball-a-ween here in Toronto. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are putting their typical Halloween or Samhain plans on hold or on delay. At least that's what I'm doing. And we'll be doing that a few days behind. But this coming weekend is also All Saints Day, All Souls Day. And so this 3-day moment in time, whether you decide to celebrate or honor this energy or honor your ancestors around Halloween or on November 1st or on November 2nd, the exact day, don't get too hung up on it. Just do the best you can and work with the energies when you're able to. Work with your spirits and your saints and the land and your ancestors, and do something special around this time. It's also a great time to do divination, automatic writing, and things of that nature. Anything kind of divinatory, anything where you are scrying into the past, present, or future and really trying to tap into what it is the spirits have to say. One of the common cliche things around this time of year, people tend to say that the veil is thin, which is, as we know, a very silly phrase because I've never seen a very thick veil. Have you? Aren't they all kind of thin? Isn't that part of the definition of a veil? And as we know as well, those of y'all who've been in my space for a little while will know that these skills are always available to us to learn. We can always make the veil thin, so to speak, with the right set of skills, with the right set of practices, with the right mindset, and with a commitment to our spiritual practice, and really committing to showing up, committing to connecting with ourselves, with the energy around us, with the universe, with our ancestors, with all of that stuff. Really important thing to be able to do. And, you know, if this weekend gets away from you, if it's too hectic, don't beat yourself up. You can begin whenever, but you do have to start. So it's one of those things where I don't want you to beat yourself up if this weekend is too crazy. Maybe you have kids, maybe you're trick-or-treating with them, maybe you're doing this or that and it's just really, really busy. Maybe it's just a lot going on that you don't have the time for yourself. So there's a balance of not feeling shame and guilt for that, giving yourself some grace, and then also committing to yourself that you are going to take the time and space to create boundaries around some sacred time for yourself, because you matter. Whoever you are, whatever your schedule is, however busy or spacious it is so crucial to make that time for ourselves. And so it's something I would like to invite you to do whenever you can, but also if you have to fight for it, fight for it. It's crucial that we set aside time for ourselves, for our spirituality, that no one can take away from us and that we come back to, even if we are a bit busy. So some important stuff to think about as we've got this lovely Halloween, Samhain moment. All Saints, All Souls. Also Blue Jays baseball-a-ween. So, okay. So that's just something I want to leave you guys with. Two really quick announcements before I get into the rest of some of what I want to talk about today. So I have been doing a special first-time tarot clients $100 off a reading with me. So you will get a 1-hour reading for the price of what is usually a half-hour reading. So if you've never had a tarot reading with me before, this is the time to do it. This is the time to do it, my friends, because this special deal ends at the end of the day on today, Halloween Samhain, and it will end basically whenever it is I wake up on November 1st. So who knows, I may be out partying about the Blue Jays winning the World Series, but either way, I'm not going to sleep in too late, and my cats are just having a fight on the side. I don't know if you guys can hear that. They're really pumped up for the World Series, but that deal is going to be ending really soon. So if you are on the fence, if you have been thinking about booking a reading with me, but you're like, I don't know if it's going to be worth it, book it now. Trust me, it will be worth it. If it's not the best reading you've ever had, I'll send you a free book. Also, my clothing store is winding down on November 3rd, so that'll be the last day you'll be able to make an order. And so my clothing website is shopsabrinamscott.com, and you guys can grab something on there. I've got hoodies, nice poofball hats, swimsuits. Everything is very like witchy vibe themed. So do go check that out. You can also just find the link on my website, sabrinamscott.com. If you do want to grab a tarot reading, you can do so at sabrinamscott.com/readings. So, okay, that is my little announcement, and my cats are really struggling, and I think they're really tense. This is really funny. This is happening right now. You guys, please relax, my loves. Relax. So it's funny because my cats, as I'm sure most of y'all's animals are, my cats are amazing at reading energy. And this is not actually what the episode is about today, but just it's interesting that I don't know if you guys could hear that, but that is one of the worst fights that two of my cats, Awaz and Sekhmet, have had in a really long time. It's really loud, really loud, kind of intense sounding fight. And so don't worry, this whole episode is not about cats. I think some of you guys probably would be into that. But anyway, cats, at least my cats, are really amazing at picking up on energy. And so I think they know that what I'm about to talk about is a little bit tense, a little bit heavy, I guess. Like, it's not anything that I think needs a trigger warning or whatever, but not like I really do those too much anymore anyway. But the vibe, it's interesting because, like, I'm going to be talking about a vibe at a talk I went to. And so my cats are really good at feeling energy. And so I think they can pick up the fact that I'm about to say something that, I don't know, landed weirdly to me energetically, and I'm still kind of processing it. So I'm going to process it with y'all. And so, okay, so here we go. So last night I went to go see Gabby Bernstein talk. And so I'm sure many of y'all will know who she is, and I'm sure also many of y'all won't. So she is a like self-help guru, manifestation lady. She's like one of the big names in the space. And so I'm not a super fan or anything. I've read one of her books, Super Attractor, and I liked it. I didn't really find anything that I disagreed with. I thought it was pretty decent. I have not read anything else she's written. I do have one of her oracle card decks. I think it might even be, I don't know if the Super Attractor has an oracle deck associated with it, but it's a very like kind of vague. I actually stopped using it because I find it drew me to it because the artwork was really cute and abstract, and I like some of the phrases. But I actually stopped working with it in my own practice because I found it a little bit vague, a little bit, I don't know, it just stopped being useful or helpful to me in any way. I think it does have a good energy to it. It's just, I think, not one of the most useful oracle decks. Anyway. Long story short. So I decided to go. I was originally not going to go because I saw it come up. It was like advertised to me on Instagram, and I was like, you know what? I don't know. Should I go? I don't know. Like, I'm not a super big fan. I don't know. But I do like to pay attention to what people do in this industry, right? The self-help, wellness, spirituality space. Like, that's my space. I want to see what people are doing. I want to see the type of lectures people are giving in my industry. I want to read people's books. I want to see what the conversation is. I want to see what people are talking about. And so I was very blessed to receive a huge tip from someone that I got a reading from in person. And this lovely, kind, beautiful soul who's like, her energy was amazing, just so vibrant, so positive, just so generous, so sweet. Like, she was awesome. One of my favorite people I read for last weekend. And she gave me a really big tip, and she was like, you know what, I'm going, you should go. This tip is for your Gabby ticket. I was like, you know what, fuck it. Thank you so much. I'm going to go. So I booked my ticket, I think, the next day. And I don't want this to make it seem like I'm ungrateful or anything like that. Like, I'm so grateful for this amazing person's generosity. Like, meeting her was so amazing. Like, honestly, my clients are like the best people ever. I don't know what I've done to deserve the amazingness of everyone in my sphere. Like, you guys are just my faves, and I just feel very blessed, and I'm so grateful. And so I don't want what I'm about to say about the talk to like take away from this amazing like gift that I was given to be led to go to this thing. So, okay, so I went pretty much with no real expectations. So the name of the talk was called The Universe Has Your Back. So I guess she has a new book out about this. And, you know, it sounds very like manifestation. It sounds very positive. It sounds very like, you know, all of that. And so I was kind of gearing myself up for this like very positive, talk where it was going to be uplifting. It was going to be motivational. It was going to be about manifestation. It was going to be about all these things. And so that is kind of what I was looking forward to hearing. Like, that is kind of what I wanted to hear, honestly. Like, that's what it seemed like it was going to be about. And so you guys know I don't usually do like direct critiques of people, like only when it gets to a certain point. And so do I have any real beef with this lady? Like, not really. Like, Gabby Bernstein, am I beefing with her? No. Like, I respect her. Like, I respect what she's done that I've read. At the same time, I do have some critiques. I'm going to lay them out here in this episode. And if you don't know who she is, if you don't care, blah, 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 I think this is still a worthwhile thing to listen to, because like I usually do, I'm going to work through and work with this one experience to kind of have a larger conversation about some things I'm noticing in the spirituality space, in the self-help space, in the coaching space, in like this whole community that we're all kind of a part of, right? So it was bizarre because the talk was very much not about manifestation. It was not really a positive, uplifting talk. So what basically happened was she talked for 45 minutes, basically. It was like the shortest talk I've ever seen anyone do. And the Q&A was pretty much people trauma dumping. And people were crying, people were upset, people were sharing the worst things ever they were going through. And don't get me wrong, I have so much compassion for people who are going through hardship and don't know how to deal with it. In my opinion, those folks who are in a public event crying, talking about addiction or this or that or whatever, which is really, really heavy, like an 8 out of 10 level of heaviness, those folks do not need another book about manifestation, in my opinion. Those folks, and I say this with so much love and compassion, need to go to therapy. They just do. And I've been in therapy. I think therapy is amazing. Everyone should go to therapy. And so I don't mean this in a condescending way or a, holier than thou type of way. It's just like where those folks are at in their journey, they really don't need and are not helped by a lot of this like manifestation-y stuff. And so it just kind of bummed me out. that wasn't her advice. Her advice was not, you need to go to therapy. Her advice was, oh, you need to read my other book about blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, like I'm an author myself. Like I do tell people, like, you should read this book, you should read that book of my own. At the same time, I always tell my clients too, like, hey, like this is something that the therapist can support you through as well. I always love it when my clients, my coaching clients and my tarot clients too, have therapists. I think that's amazing. It's important. I believe in everyone having a well-rounded, holistic, multifaceted ecosystem of care. And I think the spiritual is one element of that. And I think the medical therapeutic is a different element of that. And we all, I think, need all of it. And so I'm going to bop around a little bit. So this might be a little bit disorganized as we go through these different topics, but bear with me. So even before the Q&A, she originally started by talking about her book on IFS, internal family systems, which I do know about through my PhD research on trauma. It's not my main framework. If you've heard stuff on, the importance of being your own loving parent, inner child stuff, like, to me, that is as far deep into that framework as I personally go. It's not really my thing. I can see it being really helpful for some people. I think I'm just personally at a stage in my journey where, other than that kind of minimal aspect that I just shared, it's not something that I personally would find useful at this stage of where I'm at. However, your mileage may vary. Like maybe that's exactly the medicine that you need right now. So if you feel called to look it up, do so. But it was very odd to me that she spent this talk that was supposed to be about manifestation basically trying to sell everyone on this book that was about internal family systems. And so there was this kind of bizarre bait and switch element to it. There was, I don't know, like she just was a little bit condescending towards everybody. She kind of just was operating as though everyone was really deep in trauma land and everyone was just really so much less evolved than she is and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, on one hand, I get it. She might have been picking up on something real since the Q&A honestly was very trauma dumpy. So who knows? Like maybe she was picking up on the accurate energy of most of the people in the room. Who knows? But at the same time, like as an audience member, I love it to be assumed that I'm competent, that I have made progress on my journey, which personally I have. I'm sure there was a bunch of other people in the audience as well who have made progress on our journeys and are not in, and this is going to maybe sound judgmental, it's not how I mean it, but who are not in a kind of low level vibrational depression, self-loathing, crisis headspace. Like, many of us are just not there anymore. And no shade to folks who are there now. I've been there before. I get it. I used to live there for many years. So I understand how urgent it feels to deal with that and to get out of that. I completely get it. At the same time, it was kind of bizarre to be hearing all this kind of like trauma dumpy stuff. And that's really not what the talk was supposed to be about. So she did lead everyone through this little meditation-y kind of thing where you're supposed to meet one of your parts and ask it what it needs. And everyone around me was crying. Like, I was kind of bored. It was just a really interesting experience to be in. And I think as a facilitator, teacher, coach, etc., myself, like, I've taught in universities as well for many years. And so I do have a lot of experience lecturing to massive crowds of people. I taught in the second largest auditorium in the school when I was a university professor. So I get what it's like to manage the energy in a big room. And sometimes it is a lot of conflicting energies. Sometimes your audience is not on the same page as other people in the audience. Sometimes it can be a bit challenging. So I get that. So I do want to give Gabby Bernstein some grace with this. At the same time, I feel like what that exercise really did was introduce a lot of dysregulation into the room. Like, people who were fine before all of a sudden became really emotionally dysregulated and kind of back into, I would say, and this is my interpretation, it seemed like a lot of people were in a kind of more volatile trauma headspace after she did that little visualization. And then that kind of set the stage for the rest of the night. And so my experience as an audience member was that, and this is not going to sound very charitable, so my apologies, but it seemed like she really kind of triggered everyone into this dysregulated space. And then by the end of it was like, okay, you guys all need to buy this other book about IFS, and also you all need my app, because then you can talk to me at any point. And so then she demonstrated Gabby AI, because apparently it's like getting advice from her. And she's like, yeah, you can talk to me all the time, every day, with all your problems, blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, on one hand, as a business person, I get it. And that's kind of a genius business move. But as someone who was paying to be there, I was just like, I don't give a fuck about your app or your AI or honestly your other book. I wanted to hear about this one book. I wanted to hear about this. It would be like if I was pitching a class about magic and then only talked about tarot the whole time. Like, that was kind of the vibe. And so I posted this kind of commentary on Threads, and I got a lot of commentary kind of back and people agreeing with me for the most part. And some people are like, oh, she's a grifter. And like, I don't know if I'd go that far. Honestly, I'm not familiar enough with her body of work to really be able to say it either way. Someone else said something about, oh, she's put herself on a pedestal. And like, I don't even know if that's true. I don't know. I also don't know if it's possible to be a public figure and be not accused of putting yourself on a pedestal. I'm sure people accuse me of that all the time, even though I don't. I just believe that what I have to say is important, so I say it. And other people seem to think so too, and the rest is history. And so I think it's a tough one. I do think sometimes people who are public figures, who are teachers, who are coaches, speaking, creating online, I do think you're kind of in a bit of a challenging bind, because you do believe that what you say has value, which obviously I do too. And you do believe that you've got some answers, and obviously I believe that too. But it's like, how do we do that and also not be sketchy or like not be weird? And so I think part of what really sketched me out about the experience was it reminded me of some cult psychology stuff. And so as a part of my PhD, I did look into a lot of psychology stuff around trauma and sometimes what causes trauma is going to be abuse, or it's going to be, stuff of that nature. And so what I noticed in a lot of my reading and research is that the psychology of abusive relationships, whether it's an abusive romantic relationship, an abusive family relationship, a political cult, a religious cult, a sexual cult, a lot of the time, the psychology and the mechanisms of how your brain gets kind of hooked in can be really similar. With this back and forth between this praise of I love you, and then this devaluation of kind of insulting or kind of nagging. And I did feel like Gabby was kind of like low-key nagging people a bit. Like there was a little bit of a bullying vibe, but it was like a very subtle bullying vibe that was mixed between like I love you. And so this is a really common thing, right, with these kind of high demand kind of relationships that do ensnare people psychologically in these ways that are just not healthy. This mix between love and fear, being afraid of this authority figure. Like, oh my God, are they going to approve of me? Are they going to insult me? Are they going to devalue me? Are they gonna, be a bit mean? Are they gonna bully me? Or are they gonna give me the love that I so desperately desire? And so we see this a lot in cult psychology, where that is the dynamic that the leaders will often produce with their followers. They'll create the situation where followers will desperately want the approval of the guru. And that's always something that, oh my God, in my spaces, I'm like, please, like, you don't need to emulate me. Like, it's all good. You can never upset me. It's fine. And like, sometimes I'll be disappointed in people, or like, please don't do that. But like, I would never bully any of my clients. Like, I just can't imagine it. Like, I can't imagine devaluing any of my clients. It's like, even if my clients ever do something silly or dysregulated, or something that I know and they know is like a step back, like, am I ever going to bully them about that or nag them about that? Oh my God, I would never. And so to see this kind of psychology where the leader is this kind of hot and cold towards the people, I find is very strange. And that is kind of what I experienced her a little bit to be doing. I'm sure she probably doesn't see it that way, but as an outside observer who really like just read one book and thought it was decent and like isn't a super fangirl or anything, like that was kind of my experience of it. And so another thing that I noticed that's really similar with cult psychology that I feel like was going on in the talk was this kind of intimate sharing, right? So one of the things that cult leaders do tend to do, and you see this in what is that? The Osho cult. There's a documentary about that on Netflix. I'm sure it's still there. Wild Wild Country. You can check that out. It's a really interesting watch. And so this is really common in a lot of these cults. So what they'll do is people are basically strangers, but there's these rituals of sharing, rituals of oversharing, of like trauma dumping, basically. And so psychologically, this trauma dumping amongst strangers can be this kind of catharsis and create this false sense of intimacy, this false sense of security, this false sense of being heard and understood, when really that's not what happened at all. Really what happened is just a trauma dumping and a group kind of like, there's a word for this, I'm kind of drawing a blank right now, but it's like a struggle session, like a group struggle session where people are just blurting out like the most kind of dysregulated, triggered stuff. And for whatever reason, the group is in this mass delusion where everyone is experiencing that as spiritual catharsis. But for me, as an outsider who really has no skin in the game and no idealization of anybody involved, and also no hatred, right? Like no bad vibes either. Like very, neutral, positive, I would say, walking in. But for me, as that kind of neutral, slightly positive observer, it was pretty easy to see that that's part of what was going on. And again, this is like a little bit uncharitable, so I'm sure that not everyone perceived the experience this way. But in my mind, like if I'm facilitating something, like ideally in a big public auditorium, like that is not the experience I want everyone to have, because that's not the experience that everyone is kind of there to have. People aren't there to be sharing in this mass dysregulation, trauma dumping experience where people might be triggered, people might be this, people might be that. And so part of the reason why I'm bringing this up is I also saw a thread earlier today where someone was saying that all astrologers and tarot readers and psychics should be trauma informed. And so, my thought on that is, sure. But also, I do think sometimes people in the spiritual space can be so trauma informed that they cease to be useful as spiritual readers or whatever. Ultimately, and this is going to sound controversial, it is not the job of the tarot reader, the psychic, or the astrologer to be trauma informed. It is not the job of the tarot reader, the psychic, or the, whatever, to tiptoe around someone's trauma in order to not trigger them. That is not our job. That's the job of someone who is a therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, someone who is accredited and trained in a mental health field. So even though I'm almost done a PhD in a lot of stuff about trauma, that's my main research area was trauma and trauma in the body. Basically, is kind of my main area that I was looking at: trauma, the body, and spirituality, and how do all of those things kind of work together. And that is my area. But even though I have all of that research and knowledge and learning behind me, I guess I would say that I'm trauma informed. Do I have any certification? No. Will I ever have any of that certification? Not unless I get licensed as a therapist. But even then, I guess then that would be that credential. But I like that I don't have to operate in that sphere, right? And so I think sometimes what we see in the spiritual industry is scope creep. And so scope creep basically means that people are doing things that are outside of their profession. And so that is, I think, something that is an interesting thing to just bring into this conversation. Leave the therapy to the therapists, leave the trauma-focused tiptoeing to the people who do that. I think for sure know how trauma works. I think everyone should know that. At the same time, it shouldn't be, that shouldn't be how we do things. It shouldn't be, I'm so afraid of triggering someone's trauma that I'm not going to mention what this card means, or I'm not going to mention what this or that means in this reading, or I'm not going to state this psychic impression. People really do need to take responsibility for their own healing. And I say this as somebody who was incredibly in trauma land very badly for a very long time. So I get it and I've got compassion. But at the same time, I think we all need to understand that spirituality is so powerful. It's so helpful. It's so potent and amazing and transformative. At the same time, it works best in conjunction with people who are doing that type of, let's say, medical work, really. All of us are best off when we have all of these different tools in our toolkit, right? And so even though, interestingly, my PhD work is about how witchcraft can be so healing for people with trauma, and I do 100% believe that, I would never in a million years ever argue that people with trauma should not go to therapy and they should just do witchcraft instead. I think we should do both. Personally, witchcraft is part of what saved me or kept me alive, shall we say, before I had access to therapy, which is part of why I think it's so powerful. But at the same time, I was still kind of crazy, for a while. And so why am I bringing this up in regards to this talk with Gabby Bernstein and how strange it was? I think part of it just left a bit of a bad feeling in my mouth because it's this thing that's supposed to be spiritual. The talk was supposed to be about spirituality. It was actually about IFS, which is, I would say, a more medical trauma, It's a more medical type of thing. And so, but it wasn't, I think, done well. It was only done this tiny little drop of water, really. And it was not enough information was given for it to be useful. It was enough information, perhaps, to pique people's curiosity. But it was so little that I think what it actually ended up doing was doing harm, because a lot of people were just upset. And serendipitously, I ran into someone that I had met earlier in the day, actually, at the Toronto Small Business Summit earlier in the day. And I ran into her at the thing. And I don't want to like speak for this person or put words in her mouth, but she was kind of like, yeah, that was a bit weird. Like, I'm still kind of processing what that was. And it was a lot. And my lovely new friend, if you're listening to this and feel like I'm misrepresenting you, I'm sorry if that's just what I'm remembering from what you said. But I feel like we kind of bonded over that for a moment, right? Of like, that was kind of strange. Like, what just happened? Like, that was not the talk I thought I was going to go see. And so there was this dysregulation, right? And so one of my main things when I'm offering a tarot reading is I don't want to leave someone dysregulated. If I need to stay an extra 5 minutes, an extra 10 minutes, like hopefully not. But if I need to pull a few more cards just to kind of close us out and make sure that the person feels grounded, I will do it. I always do it. It's one of my personal rules to not leave people high and dry when we're in a session, whether it's coaching or whether it's tarot reading. I will not leave someone just like with the rug pulled out from under them. Like, I will not leave them in a space of activation or being triggered or whatever. You know, I just do my best to make that not a thing. You know, yeah. And that is just kind of not what happened. Like, I feel like there just was this kind of mass triggering. And I don't know, again, if everyone experienced it that way. Like, maybe not. And I wasn't triggered personally, but I felt the vibe. And that's kind of what I felt it to be. That was my interpretation of the energy that I was feeling from everyone. And like, everyone around me was pulling out tissues and crying and, you know, giving each other tissues and wiping their eyes. And it was just a lot. And I think there's one thing to be emotionally moved and then, you know, in a positive, hopeful way. And there's another kind of thing where we're emotionally moved or we feel like really heard and seen. And then there's another one where it's just like the activation, like the high intensity emotion of whatever it is. And that third thing is kind of what I feel like was happening in the space. And I think if I'm going to observe it from a business lens, it seems like she kind of activated everyone and then provided the solution of just buy the app. Then you can get all of my soothing advice in your pocket whenever you want to help you through all of your sad triggers. And buy the book too. And so it just left like a wacky taste in my mouth. I didn't love it. I think obviously there's a reason that the universe kind of put me there. Like I said, I wasn't planning on going, but then I got the nudge from that client, the nudge and the like really lovely tip. And so I feel like there was a lot of the universe that was like, you need to go. And so on the flip side of it, you know, it is inspirational to me when someone can be in the self-help, motivational, spiritual space and have such a big audience and have such an impact. And clearly there's a lot of people who really resonate with what she does. And so I think that's amazing. And so I would also love to have that big of an impact. At the same time, this can sound very cocky, but I feel like I could have given a better talk. I feel like I have given way better talks even on this podcast. And so on another level, again, this is going to sound snarky, but it gives me some wind in my sails. It's like, oh, well, if that's what some people are paying money for, like, and she's doing that and it's not that good. Okay, well, I could probably also find some success if I continue to persevere. And so, you know, this is perhaps just a perspective thing. And so that's also something I wanted to leave you guys with today, right? Is like, I could have, and this is not to pat myself on the back at all. It's more just an example because I have had some conversations with some clients lately around perspective and optimism versus pessimism and how do we react to things. And so for myself, my, I guess, secret sauce from my own life is that perspective is everything. And so what I'm always asking myself is, what am I learning here? What is the opportunity here? Why is this happening? What is this giving me an opportunity to experience? So for instance, like earlier today, I missed a streetcar and it was raining. It was cold. I had to wait for 20 minutes in the cold rain with like a hole in my shoe, which I did not know was there, but apparently hole in the bottom of my shoe, cool. So wet feet, cold, sweat from the gym. And so I could have been like, fuck, I missed the fucking streetcar. What the fuck? The cashier at the grocery store should have not taken so long, or blah, 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 blah. If only I was faster, yada, yada, yada. I could have gone into that spiral, but that did not even occur to me. It didn't. 20 years ago, would I have spiraled like that? For sure. But now my thought is, you know what? How awesome it is that I get to be in this city listening to the rain. How amazing is it that I get to be out in the rain and I get to hear the beautiful pitter patter of raindrops, and I get to be in this human experience and hear this beautiful sound and just be in this beautiful energy of rain and just have a moment to pause. And it was great. Genuinely. I'm not saying that in any particular way of like anything. It's just that's actually how I felt. Genuinely. And so with this talk, I could have, and again, this would have been me maybe 20 years ago, but now I'm like, I'm zen as a cucumber. I could have been like, that was money wasted. That was time wasted. Like, I feel so grumpy, like, blah, blah, blah. I could have done something else that night because I did have an invitation to go do something else. I could have gone into a spiral about the waste, let's say, or about the negativity, or about disappointment, or about this, or about that. But that is not useful. It is not useful. And I personally choose to believe that all of these things that happen that maybe we could perceive as annoying or inconvenient, we can choose to perceive that differently. We can choose to perceive that with curiosity. And so for me, what I've been thinking about is, wow, I am so grateful that I got the chance to experience this talk, to see and experience how many people around me truly seem to be struggling and truly in need of help. And so it inspired me to think in my business and my work, how can I help people with these traumas and struggles that they're experiencing? How can I be of service to these very troubled people who are asking things in the Q&A tonight? How can I be a better guide and teacher and leader and helper and coach for the kind of people who are in this room today so desperately desiring emotional solace, healing, etc.? It's something that I'm going to carry with me on those days where I do feel, discouraged, or will anyone hire me, or blah, blah, blah. Because even though I do have like a solid roster of folks, I am like content with my work. When you have your own business, there always is this little like niggle at the back of your mind of like, what's next? Where's the other shoe going to drop? And so being in this room full of people who need help, want help, they're showing up for themselves. In a way, it was an opportunity for me to be kind of injected with this reality of there is such a big need for the work that I do. And being able to experience that was such a blessing. And I really do mean that. That's not cope. That's not like, self-delusion or anything like that. Like, I really do feel, despite all my complaints that I just made, it is a gift that I now got to know that on a deeper level than I knew that a few days ago. Here's this room full of people, mostly women, who are showing up for their own healing in the best way that they know how. My question to myself then becomes, how can I better serve those people who need this help, who are as traumatized right now as I was 20 years ago, who are in as much of a struggle, having difficulty with their mind, negativity, self-sabotage, choosing bad relationships, making bad choices, being sad, being miserable in a spirally kind of trauma way. How can I help those people who are where I was, let's say 20 years ago? And being able to be in that and really seeing the need, seeing the desire. It inspires me that all of these people truly desire healing. They desire a better life. And on the internet, sometimes it's really easy to believe that like everyone is just so committed to their misery, because that's how a lot of people show up online, you know? And I've had this conversation with a few other creators online recently of like, it really seems like people don't want to learn and grow. Why do we do this? And I got to be reminded that's why last night. So there's always a blessing. There's always a lesson. There is always a reason. There is always something to be harvested from these experiences that don't go exactly how we think they're going to go. So I want to leave you with that. I feel called to shut the fuck up. But it feels good to be back. It feels good to be using my voice in this way once more. It feels good to have some healing in my voice. And I'm really curious, were any of you guys there at the talk in the Gabby Bernstein talk in Toronto? Were you there? Have you seen her talk before? If so, how was it? I was chatting with someone on Threads earlier who had, I think, photographed an event of hers a bit ago. And her observations were interesting too. So I'm just curious. And I'm not a hater. I'm not coming at this from a place of being a hater. I don't generally find that useful, except in rare occasions when I do. But I'm more just thinking about it from an observational, perspective of that really was not what I was expecting. So if you've been to one of her things, let me know. I'm curious. And again, I'm not like a super fan or anything. And someone commented on Threads too, like, oh, never meet your heroes. Like, they're all going to suck ass and blah, blah, blah. And she was never my hero. I was, again, neutral positive. But at the same time, I did get the opportunity to see one of my actual heroes, Jordan Peterson, talk earlier this year, and he fucking knocked it out of the park. It was incredible. Amazing. One of the best talks I've been to, and it was a blast. And so, again, there's this negativity of never meet your heroes. You're just going to be disappointed. It's like, well, I didn't get to meet him, but I did get to see the talk. And so it's, again, perspective. What do we learn from these experiences? Not all people are the same. Going to one person's talk that you admire might be awesome, and going to the other person's might not be, We can't make our decisions today based on yesterday. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, but I don't know. I just think it's good to have experiences and be open to the world and be open to the universe. And I was really hoping she would talk about that, but she didn't, but that's okay. So anyway, that's it for me for now. Much love, my friends. Happy Halloween, happy Samhain. I hope you're having a great day. And if you've listened to this whole thing, thank you. I really appreciate that you are welcoming part of my brain into your day, your evening, your morning, whatever time it is for you. And again, happy Halloween, happy Samhain. I will be doing tarot for November on Saturday, tomorrow, obviously. I'm planning for noon Eastern time, but who knows? We'll see. It might be a little bit later, depending on how late the Blue Jays party goes. We'll see. But either way, I'll be over on YouTube, and Sunday service also will be back this coming Sunday. What will be the topic? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. And hopefully I'll see you guys there. Much love. Talk soon. Again, if you want to book anything with me, check out my courses, blah, 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 SabrinaMScott.com. And of course, my Instagram, Sabrina M. Scott. My YouTube is youtube.com/SabrinaScott. So feel free to say hi. And if you have not grabbed my new book, A Witch at Home, 18 Rituals for Life, Love, and Healing, definitely do so. It's on Amazon. Everyone who has read it so far really likes it. It's very different from all my other books. It's the most how-to step-by-step book I've ever written. So do go check that out. Maybe you will like it as much as everyone else has. All right, y'all. That's it for me. Much love. Bye.